So good morning to everyone. Nice to see you in such a number. This symposium is part of a multi-year project called Identity in Fashion, and each year there's an international symposium that is held on the certain topic. This year we are taking place in a wonderful building where Center Rock is positioned, and welcomed us to have this international symposium. Dear guests, thank you for having you here. I will be introducing them later on. We'll be talking about the fashion and identity on the margins. The official title is Fashion Beyond the Centers, Identity on the Margins. Probably you will see and hear a lot of different approaches to the issue. But first of all, I would like to welcome Lucia Jankovic, who is a project manager at Center Rock, to welcome us all on behalf of the center.
Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to Center Rock. I am very delighted that we can host such events because, to put things a little bit into the context, I myself am as well a trained fashion and textile designer. I do not practice fashion and textile design anymore, but I am in this wonderful position where I can be a part of a project where we can promote, engage, have discussions about fashion, have wonderful designers here, create amazing projects. And if you've noticed, I'm very nervous because I don't do public speaking, but if you've noticed when you enter the building, there's an exhibition happening, and I invite you after the symposium to walk around all the way up to the third floor and see what Center Rock can help to produce. We every year have designers in residency who come here and make amazing projects, everything from fashion design to product design to experimental materials and so on. And we have amazing opportunities also for the young creatives. I can see that there's a lot of you here. And we have programs such as Mladi Rok, we have trainings, we have all this different support. So I invite you to stay alert, follow what's happening here, because there are amazing opportunities for you waiting, and we welcome you all here. And now I would like to present you a short video that will explain what Center Rock is, probably better than I did. And after that, I will invite you also roll a short video of a designer statement from Dragan Hristov from Macedonia, who was here as a designer in residency. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dragan Hristov. I come from Skopje, North Macedonia. I'm a fashion designer and founder of the fashion label Ludus. I started working with fashion some 20-25 years ago. I also work as a textile artist. When I saw the open call at Center Rock, which was on the theme of what can we learn from our ancestors, I have developed these techniques of natural dyeing. I saw it as a perfect opportunity to expand and evolve it here. I think that one of the most sustainable ways of working in fashion is producing timeless designs. This collection that I'm developing here is made entirely with zero waste patterns or minimum waste, which was very important to me. I use other techniques like deep dyeing, gradient dyeing, and I'm also developing a new technique which is sort of like wood block printing, but I do it with metal plates which are corroded, and I transfer this on the textile. I find it personally not very interesting to use uniform dyeing, especially when it comes to a slow brand like mine or a collection that's going to be exhibited in a center like Rock. I think experimentation is really important.
Great to see these great examples, because it is a nice introduction into our today topics, and I think some of the, if not all of them will be, or some of them specifically will talk about those topics and issues that Ludus has started. But first of all, as Center Rock has its history, also fashion has history, and in today's world, hopefully my presentation will go on, Doman, if you can help me with that. I will try to overlook all the issues we are going to talk about today. In general, talking about Slovenian fashionista is a term that I started many years ago, and it's actually the game with the words that sounds the same but have different meanings. So Slovenian, it's not working. What I have to, like that? Can you help me, Doman, to go further on, or should I stay over there? Okay, sorry for interruption, but we just have to do it like that. I like to walk around when I speak, so okay, this one is probably working. Yeah. So Slovenian fashion started many decades ago, but I tried to contextualize it because its importance lies in a many different contextual grounds. Among them there are 7: temporal, geographical, economic, social, political, cultural, and of course in the late years very publicly spoken issue, it's sustainability, but in the Slovenian case has been a long time ago already established. So analysis of a contextualization of Slovenian fashion lies in those contexts, but each context I try to develop certain categories which are essential for the appearance of Slovenian fashion. And I think also in today's topics we will hear many of those, and we will touch many of those issues, those categories, which I think define today's fashion as well. So contemporary context in design was analyzed through design awards. which was in the history, the one and very important was Ljubljanski Zmaj and Košuta in Belgrade. Those were two main fashion fairs, also giving awards for the best collections. Connected with Ljubljanski Zmaj, it was award called Zlata Jana, awarded by the jury of Jana magazine. And in recent years, you probably are well aware of the L Style Award. Then is WOW from the Ljubljana Fashion Week, and Big C, which is a smaller award. And then we have fairs. The first fair was Fashion Fair in Ljubljana that was established in 1956. So next year we are celebrating a big anniversary of it, and it ran through many decades till the end of last century. Then we had a fashion fair in Belgrade called Fashion in the World, an important one for distributing fashion into the European market. And then a very interesting one, Moda Fest, that was run in the 70s, established in Zagreb, but then was a sort of a traveling festival. And it's interesting from today's perspective because it tried to distribute fashion all around the geographical area of the country at the time through Yugoslavia, but it was important coming to the small places. Imagine today that fashion is not centered, for Slovenia example, it's not centered just in Ljubljana, but you can run into the fashion, I don't know, in the small villages, small places around the Slovenia. It would be really amazing and in accordance to the sustainable strategies. Unfortunately, it ran just in the 70s, and it also has an international version of it. And later on, it was an event called Fashion Bazaar, and probably your franchise that was ran in Slovenia for seven fashion shows called Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Ljubljana, held by Saša Radović. And then it's now still going on, Ljubljana Fashion Week, regularly for 10 plus years. But previously it was called Philips Fashion Week. So the same people ran this event. Geographical context is very important. Today we will speak about the decolonization and redefining the fashion connected with the geographical context. And here are important some of the segments like consumer participation, also in today's perspective for sustainability, very important one. Was very strong through many years in the Slovenian fashion, through the education about the clothing culture already in the 50s. Last century, Eva Paulin wrote a manual how to dress, how to properly dress, how to educate the population about the clothing culture. So the second category is the local taste, which I think you all find it's still very dominant, and especially the ones who are dealing with as fashion designers or are in the market. You know that the local taste is in many cases the thing to emphasize the how to sell. So the local taste is very still important in Slovenian fashion. It is restrained. It always has been and still is. Doesn't like any innovation, or it's very hard those innovations to come into place. So DIY is an approach that was already from the 70s on very strongly integrated in the Slovenian fashion. It's not a newly discovery, but has very strongly been integrated in the fashion media, in the fashion industry. They popularized this DIY approach And this is something that today we can rely on as something that has been already done. And of course, the geographical context now we can see with the comparison of global trends that has been already somehow detected in the 70s. So again, we are not just in the time where now suddenly we are following any trends, but the trends were here already before. I have to mention that from the 60s on, 1960s on, Slovenian fashion designers were going into the fashion fairs around Europe, mainly in Rome, Paris, Florence, and sometimes in Turin and Düsseldorf, to follow all the trends. So this was a regular event for them twice a year. I don't know how many of the fashion designers today go and be a part of those events. Not many, as far as I'm know. Of course, the situation has changed because they can follow it through other media, but nevertheless being present is another story, because you meet in person people. Like today we are meeting and making more stronger community than we would do it online. I think economic context in Slovenian fashion is very strange, because it is connected with the cultural one, with the media. Because the Slovenian market is small-scale market, we cannot be compared with the big markets like Italy, France, even Germany, although the Germany has less symbolic value than Italy and France has. But we have to somehow compare ourselves with the same size fashion economies. And in this sense, small size or micro-size economies, as Slovenian fashion is very connected with the media. So if you're not in the media, you almost do not exist. Therefore, the media is so important for not just for the presentation, but also for the economic impact of the Slovenian fashion designers. In this sense, the media has been strongly developed in the past, but it's vaguely, it's not really strong. It's a very, very weak, so to speak, today, but it used to be very widely spread, especially the printed media was very strong. Today we have some editors in certain medias which are franchise, and again, this is a bit of a problem because it is not autonomous. But how they present fashion, it's mainly through profiles or interviews, collection reports, cover page, this is very common, or product guide, even more common than all the others are. Sometimes also fashion editorials or fashion stories, but since we have mostly franchise, also this is not taking place very often. So fashion media, this is how it was developed through last 80 plus years. As you can see also, the number of the media has lowered, and also the last one, L plus Grazia, are the main just focused on the fashion in Slovenia, but they are franchised. So here are some details about when they were taking place, or those printed fashion medias. Today we, of course, I have to mention Eva Pavlin. Eva Pavlin was the first fashion journalist in Slovenia, and she was publishing regularly her reports from Paris, Florence, Rome, Düsseldorf, and Turin, and also she was collaborating with fashion industry. So Eva Pavlin, and later on also Bernarda Rakovec, later remarried, and name was Jeklin, so if you would have trouble finding her under Rakovec's surname. So printed media, here are the covers of the printed media that I was showing you before. also you can see the development of the style, of the aesthetics throughout the time. So in today's world, you probably all know about the bloggers, about the influencers. They are very important for representation of fashion, and without them, almost you don't exist. But of course, lately, pointer is probably the red one, yeah. It's the culture. It's called kulturna, like, this is an important one because fashion became part of the elite culture. So it's not something just to be published as in the yellow pages, but it's something like a serious business, and it's now part of the cultures. Some of those names of bloggers you probably do know. Many of them are not connected anymore with the blogging, but nevertheless there are still influences in the fashion business. Some data also about how many photos they are presenting when they are talking about fashion, how many words they are using to describe what is on the photos, and of course it is important that in Slovenia do sign the designer, and also they can redirect to the website or to some other digital platform to the designer. Cultural context was very influential throughout the history of Slovenian fashion, and was also always connected with artists. This is the first example from the 70s, an important one with the very respectful fine artists in Slovenia, collaborating with the textile industry, with the clothing industry, and with the experts, with the fashion designers, even Richard Gumze coming from Zagreb, Vesna Gabrčik and Eva Paulin from Slovenia. Later on in the 80s, this collaboration has been deepened and also connected other industries. This one also won an award at the fashion fair in Ljubljana. This is important one because this is unique one for the Slovene fashion, that we have, this is the last one, Pro Arts Vivendi. This was a label that printed media has established. That is something that doesn't happen regularly in the global scale. And the last one on the right, it is the collection that was did by the Association of Fine Artists. And I find it interesting, so they really invited fine artists, painters mainly, to do their clothing according to their, of course, as inspiration was their art, but then implemented on clothing. Mainly in Slovenia, we are now dealing this interaction in the cultural context that clothing and fashion, clothing or fashion designers are at the same time costume designers. This is very common, and they work interchangeably. But also clothing as an art object started in the 80s, as it globally started, but then also transferred into the Slovenian geographical space. Here are some examples from the past, and here are also examples from the present, which are more strongly connected or are researching. This visual research and artistic research is connected to the representation of the identity. So the identity is very crucial in today's world. Slovenian fashionista in the changing contextual context started, of course, with the big changes in the beginning of the 90s. Of course, here I have to look differences between the socialist period and I call it still transitional capitalism in fashion, because it didn't really it really emerged into the real capitalist fashion. So it's still a transitional one. We're still fighting for some real business here. Oh, sorry, I was just too quick. So in socialism, important was also from the sustainable perspective that this industry was very closely included into the local environment, cooperated with them, also financed some cultural sport event, like building houses for people, having their own medical care within the industry, or even in Beti they had their own hairdresser for many decades. So they were like taking care for their employees. But it was during the socialist time, even the most respectful brands had modest impact on the social stratification, comparing to nowadays, where wearing certain brands means also a social stratification, meaning who you are within the society. But today, of course, is something that we never recognized before. Fashion designers are treated as a product. So it's not their work they're doing, but themselves. They became a product through representation, through media and fashion events. Of course, during this time there was a decline of industry, but there was emergence of independent designers throughout 90s. First industries that has collapsed at that present, but of course also at that time emerged all the other small businesses, small fashion brands. Some of them don't exist anymore, but some of them still exist after 30 plus years. Here are some examples of their work from that period. Of course, in this century, strong global changes has developed, and these changes also influenced the emergence of many other brands that started at the time. Also, I started at the time, but I'm not working as a fashion designer anymore. But some of them, many of them, are still present even at the Ljubljana fashion. Parallel to that, most of the industry has collapsed. So here are the dates when they collapsed after the so-called transformation of the ownership. So when they knew who is the owner, suddenly they collapsed. So it didn't help much at the time. The political context in Slovenia fashion is, for me, interesting because more or less doesn't have any saying. So the fashion design never is politically active, but we will hear today that fashion has to have also this active role. But regarding the decolonization, which will be also talked later on, the image of Eastern fashion is very central and has been always very central, and also the industry was positioned in this Eastern part of fashion like we don't exist, like geographically you are over there, you are not mapped on the fashion landscape. Also, there were other strategic interventions like developing the whole geographic area, not just centralize it within the center, within the Ljubljana. But I find also that these state interventions, we are talking very much lately about it, but it has been throughout the history. The state interventions into fashion has always been present because it doesn't have a very high added value to the market. And today we don't hear about fashion diplomacy in Slovenian fashion. They don't know how to use fashion as something to to export it. So I think we still have to work on that issue. But politicians were always part of the fashion. They wanted to be on the fashion fairs. They wanted to show themselves on the fashion fair, and it's still like that. But I find very maybe I can say also disturbing that Slovenian fashion is very modest in political commentary, because in today's world especially, I think fashion is also part of the of being socially aware and have your own voice, and it's a very good media to also distribute this this commentary. There are just few examples that are connected with this political commentary, and one name always pump up, and this is Sanja Grčić, that was really strongly involved, did understand what is the meaning of fashion and the story behind. I'd still put Almira Sadar and her project Foxes, although there are some are arguing that it's more like contextual, social and cultural context, but I still find that very political, because those who are a bit more older remember their mothers, maybe grandmothers, wearing those foxes natural necks. So the context of sustainability in fashion, Slovenian fashion, is like that today. Those are the data from Statista for this year. In what kind of environment Slovenian fashion, sustainable fashion now exists. In average, each person in Slovenia will spend a bit less than 600 euros per person this year for clothing, which includes everything, clothing, even shoes, and they will buy almost 51 pieces. And that leaves us to 11 euros per piece. I don't know where you can find, yeah, there are some very like smiling and like questioning yourself, where I can find so many clothing for such, yeah, somebody is now raising her hand, but nevertheless, this is disturbing, because Slovenian fashion is really sustainably oriented, and everybody knows that sustainably oriented fashion products cannot be cheap. There are many reasons we are going to talk about today, but they cannot be cheap. And here lies the reason why the fashion moves into this fast fashion, quickly changing product environment. What is specific for the Slovenian fashion, sustainable fashion, is short clothing production chains, but the lack of everything is outsourcing, so the production is outsourcing. Very few of them have their in-house production. And what is it? They do offer lifetime services for clothing, but we are still very poor in the textile production, or even it doesn't exist. So here lies a great potential for being on the sustainable market, and also lack of information about supply and production chains. Almost nobody really transparently put this information publicly. So I find this very interesting, because they could do it very easily. They know people who are behind the production, so they do have very very close connect, really distribute their names of who is behind, very, very rarely, and in scope scale. But what is important, the user has been always very involved in the production. So, you know, this we are approaching almost do it together principle. There are some names which are, some of them are also present with us today, that are sustainably oriented. There are many more, but I just chose those for certain reasons. sustainable business initiatives. Then I'm going to conclude my presentation and enter into the issues of today's symposium. First, I have to mention the shirting that is connected to new clothing metabolism and connection between the user and designers. I have to mention Things I Miss by Tina Prince, who is with us today. And importantly, she's doing and integrating in her work interdisciplinarity besides the zero waste, which is important, but interdisciplinarity is for sustainability, I think, a crucial one. Willy Van Style as pilot project still going on, but not in this scale. This was a van, actual van that was like a Moda fest in 70s, going around Slovenia and decentralizing sales. So bringing fashion to small places around Slovenia, and also building fashion community, which is today we will talk about, very important. There are two more brands, very small one and a late one. One is Hiška, that uses very strongly digital tools and circular fashion into the brand's DNA. And Hiška is important because it's establishing, also I think they have a place here in Center Row, but establishing fashion narrative for teenagers, for the group which is growing, important to give them sustainable principles as their way of living, as they style life. I think this is very important, therefore is Hiška here. And the last one is Suicide Appetite, a small one that is based on a do-it-together and do-it-together principles, like building up individual creativity with the toolkits for certain more complex models, with all the tutorials how to do those things. So included the customer into the process of designing. Today, I think we will talk more or less about all those hashtags, and if we want to be in today's fashion business, please use those hashtags when you publish, when you post something, when you put on a story on Reel or whatever. Try to be active on your platforms. So I will conclude this my introduction, and I kindly invite my colleague coming from Belgrade Metropolitan University, Lidija Jovanović, who will be introducing her presentation. Lydia, please join us quickly, just to tell about her. Lidija Jovanović, as I said, is coming from Metropolitan University, but also she is very active and running the association. She's the president now, as yes. I know, the president of the Association for Fine Arts, Applied Arts and Designers of Serbia, called Ulupuc, if you will try to find it on the net. But also she's not just a researcher, teacher, and involved as a president of Ulupuc, but also a practitioner. She runs her own design studio called Lidija Jovanović, of course. And the topic or the title will be Bodies at the Margin, Instagram Street Fashion as a New Geography of Trend. So Lidija Jovanović, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I went forward, a lot forward. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanya, for inviting me here. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I'm so glad to be at this beautiful building and this wonderful hub I heard about. It's really interesting, and I really enjoyed the place at the beginning, and then everything else that's going on. It was really interesting to hear what Tanja was saying about history of Slovenian fashion, which is interesting to me because we were part of the same fashion heritage for so long time. And we're on the same research, actually, because I'm trying for a long time to do something with the heritage of social fashion in Serbia, not social, but socialistic fashion in Serbia, because many of the things are lost when the factories are closed. So we lose a lot of our identity, and I'm glad to hear Tanja was doing the same thing here in Slovenia. I would say maybe research, maybe the topic for today is something that started perhaps maybe 10 years ago when I was teaching at Accademia dell'Uso Milano, their part in Belgrade, and at that moment we were starting a new course which was named E-Fashion. And we tried to do it on a scientific note and to use some books and some research which can help us to think about marketing on the internet. And what happened at the moment, it was 2015. All the books and all scientific research that we could find at the moment was for 2012. At that moment, it was so aged and so old, only 3 years old. Many new things happened online. At that moment, we see that actually things are changing much faster that we can keep track and make it and put it in some scientific order. At that moment, we tried to do our own research. And what was interesting, in these books, which were from 2012, they were saying that perhaps the marketing on the internet will go through the Facebook, and that Facebook will start online marketing. Instagram wasn't mentioned at all because at the 2012 didn't exist. And the 2015, when we start our research, Instagram was having really big leaps, and it was starting forward really, really fast, and already was doing a really big impact. And 3 years before it didn't exist. So I started to look what's going on, what's happening online, and how it affects our perspective of fashion. And what happened was really, really, really interesting, because I need to take my glasses off because they are they're not for reading. And at that moment, we see that something is happening really, 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 really fast, because through the whole 20th century, we have fashion emerging to become something completely new. Intention of the fashion and the fashion business was to have control over what is going on in 1, 2, or 3 years forward, because that is the thing with the business. You need to have things under control. And that's why big centers was controlling what the trends of. That's why fashion fairs was created, to have things under control. Because as much control as you have, less risk you have in the business part of the fashion. And at the moment, trends was moving from top down to bottom up. What I would call like a pyramid, because before top was deciding what's going on, and step by step fashion was going to the lower parts in the next lines of for fashion production, and finally it finish on the street and becomes street fashion. What Instagram opened and what we see on the Instagram was the things wasn't going like that anymore. Actually, Instagram wasn't changing things. Instagram just show us things. It show how things really goes. Because if you look forward, if you look in the history, you see that influencers even then changed the world of fashion. If you see Coco Chanel, for example, she was the influencer. She changed the fashion because she had the connection. She has the influence and had a new vision. And her visibility make her vision possible, and he changed complete world of fashion. It was happening before, but visibility wasn't so obvious. Instagram, when I talk about Instagram, I talk about all influencing platforms, but Instagram is something which is most visible to us. Instagram over the night changed the things, and suddenly street fashion, something that was going on the streets, become something that was changing fashion from the bottom up to the top. So we became some sort of, I used to call it fashion laboratory. It opened things for something new that was going, and that was the visibility that I was talking about. So without this visibility, all the creativity wasn't able to happen as it was happening in the last 10 years. What was even more important for me, what I saw in our research is that I'm talking about last 10 years. First 5 years it was happening, bloggers were very active, but what was most important and most interesting for me, the last 5 years after COVID was even bigger explosion of the ideas. What wasn't, it's counterintuitive, actually. When you talk about COVID, you talk about closing up, you talk about changing the vision of the world. The world became more, this is my feeling, more darker place. We saw it were going to happen. And you didn't expect fashion to explode the way it was in the last 5 years. And that is maybe because clothes inside, this is my idea, maybe it's not true, but I see things like this. Clothing make us more creative, and when we open up, all that creation exploded on the streets and changed our vision even more, because comfort became our new today, our new vision of the what's going on. So I think that is maybe the thing that things was changing a little bit faster in the last 5 years. So the body became new space. The body became the new author. I'm using a little bit of my written things because this is English. It will be much easier if it's in Serbian. But in fashion theory, the idea of space is not merely geographic, but deeply symbolic. The center represents authority, the power to define value, beauty, and legitimacy. The periphery, on the hand, has traditionally been associated with local, informal, and non-intuitional expression. Instagram destabilize and straddle interiorly and make fashion democratic. On the digital map, Milan, Manila, Celje, Belgrade, Niš exist on equal footing. Paris, Pačevo appear on the same screen with the same potential for variety. What matters is not institutional prestige, but visibility, which we were talking about. And visibility in the area of algorithm culture becomes the new geography of the fashion. And what emerges that change? At the moment, when I was working at Academia dell'Uso, we started a new research, and that research was connected with the topic of the profession in fashion. And we usually was talking about stylists, about fashion designers, about people that work in production, and suddenly we gain a new professions in fashion, which was connected with the style fashion. So we now have many companies hire the photographers which go to the photo hunting over the world and try to find interesting styles on the street, which they're later involved in their collection. So the trends are looked and searched on the streets. They are not longer looked and searched in the big centers of the fashion. And even if they use it and reuse it and make something new out of it, actually they came from the origins, they came from the street, they came from everything that was going on the street. So we get new silhouettes born on the street, like maybe the Balenciaga was the best example, and Demna, which used street fashion and Demna's feeling actually, but they use it in the very profound way, and they use it in everyday way. So, and the heart of this shift is the body itself, and on the Instagram body is a passive mannequin holding the garment. It became the performative space, the stage of identity, experimentation, and self-construction. Street fashion profiles foreground bodies that we once overlooked by mainstream fashion, non-standard bodies, gender-fluid bodies, again bodies that resist normative beauty codes. We see now silhouettes emerging, oversized layering, dystopic proportion, hybrid combination of sport, utility, and couture. And these are aesthetic shape, not but ateliers, but live experience, urban movement, culture, and improvisation. And that is something that brought in the center of attention new topics. Now we talk about body positivity, which wasn't a topic 10 years ago, even though time after time some brands start to talk about it. Now this is a big topic. This is a topic that everybody is using in their campaigns. Is there really body positivity involved in fashion? That is the other question. But the mere need to be in the center of attention such topic means that it's now the center of our interest, which wasn't 10 years ago, and that change and movement to the Instagram and to the street fashion put that topic inside, because we saw that we have so many individuals which have their influence pages, which have body positivity topic in the center of their attention. So democratized visibility is reversed to the very mechanism through which fashion trend circulates in the classical modern runway-generated area, and consumers merely adopt it. In today's landscape, the origin points often lies at the margin. A photo taken in Lagos, styling experiment in Seoul, a terrific combination from Eastern Europe. Designers from major houses, Watermans, Balenciaga, even Dior, now regularly draw from street imaginary at the surface of raw authenticity. Streetwear has become luxury, periphery has become aspiration, but this shift is not without complexity. Once the center absorbs aesthetic from the margins, it repackages and commodifies them. Thus, while fashion from below shapes the trend, it doesn't always control the economy of that trend. This tension between empowerment and appropriation is central to understanding the digital fashion ecology we are living in. And that is actually the new topic that was not earlier seen. We now have empowerment, which I was talking about, empowerment of those who has creativity and they are every day online and they have influence and their creativity is accepted and visible, and this is something that we are we can call it empowerment of empowerment of the person. But at the end, we have the situation that that is took from the big companies without any representation. Some of these which are influenced, they have, of course, money, and their pages are highly visited. But many of the ideas created and start to be part of the high fashion industry without any reciprocation. So fashion is authored everywhere, and fashion is authored by everyone these days. And now we can add to it AI, which created new fashion ideas, and now this is something that goes from the AI creators, which are not originally from the fashion, and they create some really interesting fashion ideas. And that bounce up, and designers start to look up to AI fashion and start to generate new ideas from that. So what we got in reverse in last 3 or 4 years, or maybe 2 years, which AI was generated the greatest, is the thing that AI fashion is now a reflection of, I can call it new streetwear, but it is as well part of the centralization and that idea. In this fashion landscape, identity is no longer being built through belonging to elite centers, but through a personalized act of self-presentation, through being seen. And perhaps the most radical idea emerging from this shift is following. Fashion is no longer the exclusive language of the center. It is shared visual conversation, authored simultaneously for everyone and by everyone. And this is something that we can hope that can change the world of fashion. Maybe not, maybe this is the ideal idea, but I think that democratization of fashion came from street.
So just please, Lydia, if you can join me, they're really be aware of. They're down. So you have to. You were talking about everywhere and everyone. It's authored by everyone and everywhere. But again, in this sense, of course, Instagram also enables peripheral urban scenes to influence global fashion, as you have mentioned, and these norms. But does this really signal a true democratization and of fashion geography, which we are both talking about, or we are actually witnessing a kind of algorithmically led hierarchy that all feels that it's more democratic?
Oh, that was the thing that I was saying at the end. Actually, this is something that we want to believe. That is something that we really want to become democratic. At the beginning, when it all started, it was really democratical process in fashion. It really was origin. But as time goes by, algorithms preferred some things. And what is very interesting, the big brands saw the potential in it. So if you see in the Instagram pages of the big brands at the beginning of the Instagram, there was so much edited like printed media. They look like printed media, the fashion, their commercials look like that. But then they saw the algorithm prefers messier things that are connected with the life, with the real life things. So they start to engage the art directors, which are 22, 23 years old, which are much more comfortable with the algorithm and which can actually understand and follow algorithm much faster. So this is the appropriation as well I was talking about. They don't appropriate just design, they appropriate actually the way of thinking, the style of the people that create democratical street fashion on the Instagram.
But do you think that small-scale fashion landscapes can follow those big names, in this sense, being visible in the same attitude, same strength as those big brands from the symbolically much more stronger areas?
In the strength, in strength, as in the money, no. But in creativity, yes. I think that this is actually the good thing that happened from Instagram. When I was starting my business, it was 2005, and you need to have paid commercial. You need to go through the media, through the official media, to be seen.
Through standards media.
Yes. And you need to have a shop on the street when people can see you, and this was also part of the marketing. Today, there is much more space for creative marketing, and there are brands which enroll in that way of thinking, and if they are creative enough, young people very fast can gain a lot of followers without any paid commercials. But this is all a bit, it is following the algorithm, it is creativity, but it is a bit of a luck, like I believe everything in life.
Yep, the question is still who is, because the ones who are running algorithms are running the business.
Yes.
So we have to follow algorithms of
we
today's world.
And we need to fight algorithms all the time, because in some time gaps, you can catch some hole in the algorithm and you can do something really big, and then algorithms understand that and go against you. But this is the fight with the algorithm, and I think that the fight with them as well as the fight with the system. So if you...
So you think that also in this sense, in these digital platforms, we can be less on margins, geographically on margins, and that we can also somehow be able to change the fashion system within?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's possible. I think it's really happening. I think that it was happening for the last 10 years, maybe more than ever. It's happening a little bit less at this moment, because the things that I was talking about understand all the other people that are connected in the fashion business. I'm not a genius, so everybody understands that. And they conquered the world of the street fashion on Instagram and use it for their own. I think that there is still a more democratic way to do fashion and be visible with the networks than it was before.
So it opens up the space. Thank you, Lydia, for...
Thank you very much.
We enjoyed your view into the world of digital platforms that actually are running our, not just businesses, but our lives. Yeah. So thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now I kindly invite another speaker, guest Lea Vene, coming from Zagreb, Croatia. She's an independent curator, cultural anthropologist, and lecturer in Vienna, in Zagreb. She obtained MA in art, and she also completed 2 postmaster's courses in Royal Institute of Art in Stockholm. But she is also researcher and curator of CIMO, abbreviation for Center for Research of Fashion and Clothing based in Zagreb. Please join me. Lea, the title of her presentation will be Decolonizing and Defashioning Strategies in the Work of Center for Research and Fashion and Clothing. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Tanya, thanks for the invitation. I've let some of the publications of TIMO circle around as I talk, so you can take a look. So yeah, I'm here on behalf of TIMO, as Tanya mentioned. It's an organization that's been started 12 years ago in Zagreb. The idea was to start an NGO that would offer insight into local fashion history, local clothing cultures, that would offer a platform for institutional education, mentoring, tutoring, and also a space that would foster community engagement within textile and fashion history, and a space to commission new production in the field of art, specifically textile art. So those were some of the interests that we had when we started TIMO. And today I want to speak more about our manifesto, how we approach our research. I will reflect on some of our projects, and I think they will tackle some of these keywords that were mentioned by Tanya in the beginning. And I hope this can also showcase maybe an agenda of how one can work in the periphery, on the margin, through a certain emancipatory position, as a kind of almost, I would say, even a radical anti-capitalist state of mind that also goes almost against the fashion system. I think a lot of our work is centered around clothing culture rather than fashion. And we've been trying to develop it over the last 12 years to understand why clothing histories, clothing practices are maybe more important than thinking about fashion system. Of course, we cannot neglect the fashion system. It, in some sense, definitely affects the way that we think, the way we dress, and the way we act in those garments. But in some ways, if we turn somehow against the appropriation of the fashion system, if we focus more on local production, on our local histories, and on something that we try to call as sort of sense of humanization. So we turn more towards our human experience with cloth, with textiles, with garments. They really, I think, they carry so much more potential, which even goes beyond the aesthetics of what we wear. It goes into thinking about memory, thinking about sensorial. I think all of this can really kind of embed in all these clothes and garments that we wear. And it's something that through TIMO, I think we really try to explore in many different ways. There's just a few images to kind of give you a sense of what TIMO is about. It's set in Zagreb in kind of a semi-private public space. It is the main space where we host our events. It's actually a format of library. It's an open space where different researchers, students, or anyone else interested can also come in and borrow some books. And it's also a space where we do different kinds of discussions and conversations, and space to meet and to gather the community of Zagreb. I will point out here some of the key words that I think reflect very well how TIMO operates and how we work within our community, but also within the academic and sector, but also as a sort of activist stance that we also try to, I think, practice over the past 12 years. So as I mentioned in the title of my talk, these decolonial and defashioning strategies are super key for our work. And I think from the very beginning, we were trying to think in which way we could emancipate our local history by producing and reflecting on what the local fashion history is, or clothing history is. There's been very little research. There's a little amount of art historians or historians who are interested in retelling this local fashion history. And in that sense, I think part of the decolonial work is really trying to practice this politics of location. It's a term that's been used mainly within the feminist practice in the 80s, and then later on has been, in some sense, positive sense, also appropriated within the decolonial work, especially in the Eastern context of Eastern Europe, which signals this moment of really kind of reflecting within the local context, which for us, I think it goes in parallel with the process of self-colonization, which I think is very common for places in periphery, wanting to emulate, wanting to reproduce, replicate what they see happening in the West, happening in the center. And I think this has been also very visible in the context of former Yugoslavia, where there was a need to replicate certain Western models. With the politics of location, I think we practice a way of reflecting what is the local heritage, what is the local fashion history, what are all the local material practices, and how can we find this as a space of local material culture that becomes a super relevant starting point, whether it's for the research, and you will see how we did it within CIMO's project. So it can be a starting point for academic research, artistic research, workshops, and artistic production as well. I want to also reflect on defashioning and degrowth. It's a topic that's entered the world of fashion somehow through the practice of slow fashion, but there's more and more discussion of this in relation to degrowth practices, which we've seen in some other disciplines. But I think in fashion over the last 3 or 4 years, I see a larger interest in really using this term and understanding what this means in relation to our labor force that's present in the fashion system, in relation to our treatment of the environment that we live in, but also, I guess, in the way that we work with these fashion histories. Defashioning has been specifically used a lot in fashion education, what I've noticed over the last few years, as a term that could signal our new approach to what is our fashion education. And this is something that for CIMO is also super important. We need a certain sense of distance from the education system being embedded within the mainstream Western fashion system. And speaking from the position of the margin, which we see as a very powerful position, since we have a certain distance from what we see happening in the West, and we have a way to also reflect and digest that, but also in certain sense reflect on what we want to work with locally. So defashioning is a sort of cleansing procedure, basically, from all of these bits and pieces that have been flowing into our periphery through this process of replication or need to replicate, to kind of find a sense of like getting rid of this or kind of shedding it by one to different processes and finding what are those local topics that we need to reflect and that are maybe more relevant for the local communities, not only fashion communities, but generally community as such in our city. And you will see what are those communities that we also kind of want to target that go outside of people that we could consider a fashion community. I think it's really about democratization and decentralization, and it's about inclusivity of all those members that would maybe initially they would not be considered as fashion communities. And finally, I want to mention the term soft art, which is a super important term for us, conceptually and practically. It relates somehow to the term soft sculpture, and it is a term used in art history to all of those different sculptures that were mainly made from textiles or other type of soft materials. And we wanted to broaden this term and use it as a term of soft art, which means working with softness as a concept that I think is quite open, and it can embed a lot of different procedures and techniques, which then open this field of textile art. But I think also maybe even broader, you will see how this softness as an approach can also be translated in terms how we relate to our communities, how we relate to the actual artworks that we produce, and in which way we can kind of co-create through softness as a gesture among all of the stakeholders in the projects that we're doing. So I'll be coming back to these terms in different ways as I will tell you a little bit about projects that we did. Some of the catalogs that are circulating are also related to the projects I'll be talking about, but there's some extra catalogs from projects that, I won't have time to go through. I want to start with one of our earliest projects from 2016, and I think this one situates quite well this idea of politics of location. It was a small booklet. It's definitely circulating around. You will see it, called Locus Artis, where we really discuss in depth the concept of locality. what does local mean, and how can this idea of locus artis be a starting point for site-specific research done in Zagreb. We were interested in one phenomena and one, let's say, part of our history that's been very much invisible and neglected by mainstream fashion in some sense. And we were looking into phenomena of kumice, which in English would be auntie. Maybe there's something similar in Slovenia as well. Those are women who kind of merge the urban and suburban environment. They come from the rural parts very close to the city of Zagreb, and they sell their products on the main farmers market, usually eggs and cheese, but sometimes also vegetables. So there are really interesting appearance in the tissues and textures of the city. There's a certain sense of physical adornment and the way they dress. It's a combination of something that one could see in maybe traditional costume of the area of Zagreb and the surrounding, but there's certain elements that they're adding, like the scarves or the aprons, and one could not really consider this community to be interesting in a sense of like the fashion history. And coming back to the idea of clothing culture and also female appearance, we thought it was a great case study that one can work with historically. So we had a big archive of photos that have been analyzed in relation to the look of these aunties. We were very much interested in the prints that they were using to make, usually they were making their own aprons or this kute, almost like, so like dust coats of a sort, which are very practical when you wear them and you are working with food, so you kind of, they're almost like functional wear. And we were interested, in all these patterns and all these textiles that they were using to produce these garments. And we were looking into the way that this image has been touristified by the city of Zagreb as a landmark of the city and the market of Dolac. And we were kind of trying to diachronically look at like what's happening with auntie today. Where is she now? How is she dressing? And try to capture some of the stories of these women as well. So I think partially this story is giving space for this female presence or telling a history of these women that was really not part of any official history of the city. At the same time, looking at this physical presence, looking at the role specifically of headscarves and how they were being used and how they also speak of a certain local heritage. And also giving insight into this historical data that has been kind of scattered around, and we try to kind of put it together in a format of almost like an artist's book where one can use it as a starting point to understand the local history of city of Zagreb, because fashion as such usually happens in the city, in the capital of course, but then there's all these also places in the capital which are on the margins that we thought were a super powerful point that can be researched. Secondly, I will refer briefly on 3 projects within our big project called BOSA, Briefing on Soft Arts. It started as a project that has 2 ways in which we actually practice it. One is we commission artists to do research and produce new art, installation, sculpture. And we practice it on the other side as a mentoring process. So every year we invite 3 to 4 students or former students of visual art, and they have a space for artistic research within these terms and to produce also new work. And we find it as a really important way to contribute to local non-institutional educational formats that give space and curatorial mentoring support for all those people who are like in between finishing their studies and wanting to maybe pursue a career which is in visual arts, but in some sense also interested in textiles. For the sake of this presentation, I will refer now more on the projects that were envisioned as exhibitions. I will present 3 projects, and I think they will also kind of tackle some of the topics I mentioned at the beginning. This is the most recent project by Irish, actually Scottish artist based in Ireland, Mariel McClellan. A residency at CIMO is a very important starting point for us for these international dialogues in Zagreb. And Mariel was one of the first people we invited to do a residency in Zagreb. And from the residency, she developed a project. The residency was somehow grounded in two important topics that Timo is also researching. One is textile waste, and in which way textile waste can be put up more front in a certain public dialogue, and how can it be like a concrete material an artist works with. So Maria McLeman did a residency, like a short visit and a research at Regeneracija in Zabok. It's one of the first facilities in the Yugoslav space as well, already in the 50s, that has worked with textile recycling. And the facilities are still very active, and we worked with the waste material from the Regeneracija factory. So part of the materials that the artist produced was reusing the textile waste material that they produce. She was very much interested in the part of the textile waste that they actually cannot recycle. They recycle like 80% and make it into felt. It's like an industrial felt, but 20% is basically dust, which is a problem for them, and they collect those dust bags, and it's something that they cannot actually process. And Mariel's process of working is almost like paper making processes. She works with water, and she's actually able to, in some sense, recycle the dust and create textile out of the dust. So what she did is she created these pieces. You can see them in the central piece in this photo. She was creating basically like a soft paper, almost like a textile from that dust. And then she was recreating pattern cutting of like dust coats that are usually used in the industrial work process. So the exhibition was kind of highlighting a lot of like handwork in some sense, because there's a lot of, it's a very precarious process in which she kind of works with the dust that she got there, and then recreating these soft textiles that then somehow became almost like textile images of the dust coats, which then, of course, are very much symbolically related to the industrial work and the industrial workwear. So this was a collaboration with the Ethnographic Museum, and the second part of the exhibition was also related to handwork in relation to embroidery and some of the local embroidery techniques that she also exhibited in the second part of the exhibition. But this also showcases Timo's interest in collaborating. So we always work with different local institutions to highlight some of the topics in some sense. So there was an interesting interplay between local ethnographic heritage, the textile waste industry, and this kind of a new production of meaning as well, and a new material meaning that's being created by her works. Another project that we did at the very beginning is a collaboration with Serbian artist Maja Gecic. It was a project that at that time was a very present topic, I think, in general public space of Croatia, but I think everywhere in former Yugoslavia, and that was the decline of the textile industry. There was a lot of interest in trying to vocalize those changes, and we thought that there were several projects in Croatia as well, especially in Zagreb, and we wanted to bring in a project that would give it a regional context as well. So we had Maja Gecic showcase her project that was dealing with Belgrade that also disintegrated. And she had a two-piece work. One was a reflection of the rise and fall of that specific stories. And the second part was this really powerful sculpture that was made out of different second-hand clothes produced within Yugoslav textile industries, mostly Serbian ones. And there was a sort of a presence of this, almost like a burden of all this. Again, we have a sense of a very a kind of an intense presence of waste, but then also a certain sense of nostalgia of all these discarded garments and all these destroyed industries. And it was all set in the space of Blok in Zagreb in Trešnjevka, which is also an important neighborhood because there were several textile factories there. And we thought it was a good dialogue, again, to kind of bring this story of textile labor in some sense. I think it very much relates to the topics of the politics of location, how our discussion about textile and fashion history is very much rooted in the textile industry history. It's super inseparable. Again, a lot of interest within textile labor as female labor. Like there was an interest in kind of, again, unraveling these female labor histories as well present. And again, as I say, like there was a certain burden of this big ball of clothes, and it's something that's left unresolved, I guess, for all of us that are thinking about fashion and what is the future of fashion. There's a certain burden around it. Thirdly, I will also mention briefly the project by Ben Kane and Tina Gverovic, which highlights another important part of our research, and that's workwear histories. So again, something that's on the margin of even, of course, fashion history, but even on the margin of clothing culture, because as a functional or almost anti-fashion aspect of our heritage, it rarely gets enough attention. And it's part of a bigger project where we are looking into the role of workwear, especially blue-collar workwear, and how there's been a complete decline and basically disappearance of blue-collar workwear. We collaborated with the City Museum of Zagreb, and they actually have a collection of workwear from different industries of socialist times. And there was an interesting dialogue happening between the original, let's say, workwear in the museum and newly commissioned workwear, which was kind of a thinking of the role of blue collar today, also the role of cultural work, what is the workwear of the artist. And it kind of definitely tried to also add the topics of body, because the body is super present within this industrial work. And there was a certain tension between those bodies at work in the industrial sector. And Timo is currently producing a publication that would hopefully be published next year, which kind of tries to give a broader understanding of it's also a story about the working class history, the process of de-dignification of the blue-collar workers. It also will discuss the role of the color of the blue and how it has evaporated. Part of the research will also tackle the new workwear stories, and it's very much different. It's no more blue, it's actually gray. So there will be some discussions of trying to also place the presence of the workwear in contemporary society. And finally, I will show a project that speaks more of community work in a more dense way. It's a project that's been going on also like for quite a while, since 2017. I'm telling you a story with a needle and a thread. It's a project that we started, we were invited by one therapeutical organization that was helping asylum seekers in Zagreb and Kutina. It was offering creative programs for them while they are in the asylum. And we were invited to propose workshop, and that's how we came up with the project. I'm telling you a story with a needle and thread. There was definitely a language barrier among all the participants, which were quite diverse, so from Afghanistan to Sudan, Syria, and we tried to find a way in which we could communicate together through a process that is very inclusive in some sense. Embroidery is really something that anyone can join and kind of start working immediately, and we found it as a very good space where one can also speak their own individual language as well. And it was an amazing process. I think we have more than 500 embroideries that were a part of the whole process of almost 1.5 years of working with them, once a week with certain breaks. It was also a moment, a capture in time of someone's presence in between space. It was also a great documentation of different approaches, if we think even geographically, how all these different visual languages kind of come through. And the project then continued further. We were invited again to work with Ukrainian refugees. And it was again another process that I think that was very helpful for all the participants. It was a way to, there is definitely a therapeutical presence while someone works on such a material. And finally, our new, let's say, community that we now work with for several years is actually elderly women. We targeted those women as highly invisible, and also there's very little projects that would offer them like a long-term space of creation, but also a space to meet, to socialize. So together with the City Museum of Zagreb, we organize once a week embroidery workshops. So it created a group of 10 women that have not known each other before, that have also started to become friends and share their knowledge, and also kind of develop their own skills in some sense, but more than skills is their visual language. And For us, this project really showcases the role of textiles, the role of handwork as a method of kind of bringing people together. And again, creating a visual archive. A lot of these materials are part of CIMO, and it's part of also like, it's a public space, and we see it as a great documentation of other people's stories, maybe not directly through oral history in some sense, but through all these material evidences that are kind of left behind. These are just some of the photos from our workshop. I'm just going to play this. I'm not sure if it will work. It's fine. There was a small video of documentation of this project, of these embroideries. So yeah, I hope that this gave you a good insight in what CIMO does. It's fine. You can also turn off the sound. Mm-hmm. Okay, never mind, it's fine. Yeah, I hope this gives you a good insight. I mean, there's a lot more to say. I try to be kind of short and on point with what the topic is of today. I hope this gave you a good insight in how one can practice some of the topics and some of the keywords I mentioned in the beginning. And yeah, I'm looking forward to comments, questions. Thanks.
Yeah, working. Lea, you were talking about, firstly, so first is CIMO is public-private institution?
CIMO is an NGO, that's a non-profit organization. It's private in the sense that we are set in Tonči's apartment. Tonči is the founder, Tonči Vladislavić. So, but it's actually a civil. It's a civil organization.
Yes, yeah.
Civil
and I think in fashion it's important, these civil initiatives, because not just in production, but also in research, education, non-formal education, and also in this social aspect that you were referring to later on. But first I would like to ask you why do you think that this happened, that we were overlooked as, you know, our fashion history is overlooked in the global fashion discourse. Why do you think this happened? Are we responsible to that? Is the fashion system as such responsible? You know, who is to blame on?
I think it just speaks of the fashion system as such, which is not only before, but even now, it's very self-absorbed. So it's very much interested in what's happening in the center, because that's creating the original and for them the most relevant meaning. So in that sense, I think the self-absorbance was always very present. I think, I mean, we know as such that generally fashion academia is a field that's been developing very slowly. So I think it wasn't seriously before 70s or 80s. There were generally very little scholars who were like considered also respectable enough. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of work there to establish fashion academia as a relevant point of reference. And thirdly, I see a big problem in the fact that there were in the end just few people who were the ones who were vocalizing the history of the East. Here I have a certain distance specifically towards the work of Georgia Bartlett, who has been the only name who is working within the dominant center, meaning London, where she
came from the West.
Yeah, but she was one of these very few names who narrated the history of the East in a very, I would say in a very shallow way in some sense, because these histories are much more complex. So the history that we got in the end, that was published in the West, that was published in English, is also not a history that I think validly represents our local perspective. And now, thanks to all the different decolonial initiatives that also CIMO is part of, there's a really strong presence over the last 5 years of congregations and communities building themselves and in a self-organized manner outside of the West, outside of the academia. I think that's also super important. A lot of voices can be still established and can become very legit outside of the academic sector. And I think that's very important. And now this is kind of creating certain balance to balance out all these mainstream narratives that we have.
You're also involved in the educational process, and you were mentioning defashioning education, which is strongly I support, and I believe we have to make our own narrative, because we are following this mainstream fashion narrative. How do you think we can change this educational process? What would be the key elements to start with?
I think the key element to defashioning is not catering to the fashion system. Because anyways, even with this educational system that is already kind of established in such a way that it replicates what we accept or we expect to be the fashion model, people can anyways not attain it. And most of the people will not end up in the fashion industry. They won't anyways have brands that are successful according those Western fashion ways of working. So the start is to try again and think locally. What would be the set of skills and knowledges a student in Zagreb, where I teach, would need to do their own work, still within the field of fashion, but that will be more reasonable within the system they live in. Part of this is also being familiar about local fashion history. So from my own perspective, I don't teach practical courses. I teach more like courses in anthropology, fashion and fashion and museums and fashion history. I try to educate them also about the local fashion, read anywhere they don't know of. Maybe that can also be part of their inspiration or give them certain guidance. And then again, on practical sense, I think it's super important to find something that's sustainable within the local context, not looking at some examples in the West that don't make sense in the local context.
In the local environment, with the specifics that arise from the history and also from the contemporary ways of living, because we are not living as much as it looks like we are in a generated world, but we are not still, hopefully.
Sorry, and part of this is also like breaking this idea of designer, genius, which I think is still very much present in the fashion system, how you're educated, especially if you graduate fashion design. I think this is idea that you will be this
great
authority.
Authority, hierarchy.
Also kind of a self-branded person. I think this needs to be severely unpacked.
But we need to combine theory and practice. And as far as I'm concerned, also activism into the fashion education, because the world lies on young people, and they will change fashion system as anyone can. So we can further on talk during the coffee break. Thank you, Lea, and you are all welcome to have coffee, and later we will talk on.
Thanks.
Prijatelj, ja, povej. Ja.
Središč, takole. Evo. Samo sekundo, da si jaz tole preklopim. Da si tole izklopim. Evo, jaz te vidim.
Jaz sebe tudi vidim.
Okej. Zdaj, kako boš pa delila zaslon?
Nimam pojma.
Mislim, neko prezentacijo imaš, ne?
Jaz sem Tani povedala, da jaz nisem nobene prezentacije predstavila, ker sem pač mislila, da ne rabim imeti nobene prezentacije, da moram imeti samo govor.
Aha, ker imam nek tvoj PDF tukaj.
No, te pa sem ona rekla, da ji moram nekaj fotk poslati.
Okej.
In potem sem jaz njej včeraj zvečer nekaj fotk poslala.
Ja.
In pol je ona rekla, da se bo to med tem, ko mi jaz govorila, na eni strani bom bila jaz, na drugi strani fotke. In da bo to ona hitro naredila. Ali ne vem.
Mislim, jaz imam zdaj tukaj PDF iz 12 fotografij, ki jih lahko...
Ja, ker je rekla tudi, da moram prvo narediti, kje piše tudi moj kao tema.
End message by Vanja Meško-Rusenberger.
Ja, to je kao prva. Zdaj, jaz ne vem, če sem to zdaj sam na začetku pokazal, pa pol zgine, pa pol pridem jaz.
Mislim, zdaj ena varianta, kar lahko naredim,
je to, da naprimer te damo za nekaj sekund, da te vidimo, pa priklopim na full screen prezentacijo. Bi ti bilo to v redu?
Mislim, da je zelo malo fotk, kako se bojo menjavali, da se ne bojo ponavljale.
Čakaj, samo sekundo,
da skočim jaz do Tanje.
Ja, vprašajo. Ker ona je rekla pol, da bi se jaz pol videla na pol fotke, sem jaz nimam pojma. No, jaz sem tikarja. Jaz te kar tikam, upam, da je okej.
Ne, veš kaj, zdaj sem z vami na telefonu. Kako ti planiraš teh 12 fotk kazati?
Koliko mi jih je poslala, ker jih v nisem mogla nič spremeniti.
Čakaj sekundo,
Ja,
da
na
se dam
speaker.
na...
Vanja, čau. Koliko dolg je tvoj tekst?
Ne vem. Jaz sem ti ga tudi poslala zdaj.
Ne, ampak koliko dolgo recimo?
Malo manj kot 4 A4 format listov. V veliki pisavi, ker slabo vidim.
To pomeni 10-12 minut.
Meni je artificial intelligence rekla, da je 15 minut.
Ok, lej, na 1 minutko bomo menjavali te tvoje slajde, prav?
Ja, ker jaz tudi, ko boš videla, da je govor, se boš mogoče malo, če imaš govor, tudi videla. Jaz prvo govorim na splošno, pol pridem na upcycling, na mojo, pa ga prijem spet. Jaz sem pač malo dala fotke, kaj jaz delam.
Ne, v redu, jaz sem jih pogledala, super je, v redu, bomo na 1 minuto menjavali, prav, Vanja?
Lahko tudi pomem kasneje, lahko na 2 minute.
Ok, super.
Mislim, veš kaj, mogoče je šteliko slišala, da govorim o...
Bom jaz delincem dala.
Kak na ulici, kar improviziramo, improvizacija je vedno dobra.
Ne, v redu, bom jaz dajala naprej, ker te bom poslušala, prav?
Vse boš slišala, pa boš malo imela občutek, pa mogoče kjer ostane malo dalj časa, ampak gremo, ne?
Ok. V redu, ajde, se vidimo.
Iz drugega, ja.
Čau, Vanja.
Takole bo izgledalo njeno. Jaz bom šel v full screen.
Super.
In to je to.
Super, jaz bom pa z unim lahko tam sedim pa dajem
Ja,
naprej.
mislim, najprej bom dal takole na full screen,
Da nas
ne vem.
pozdravi.
Pozdravi. Vanja, se slišimo zdaj, ne? Me slišiš?
Jaz ga sam ne slišim. A ja, ona ne sliši.
A slišiš mikrofon? A ja, jaz se nisem dodal noter.
Čekaj, sem se...
Ne, pa se me tudi Tanja...
Ok, slišim, jaz tudi tebe zdaj slišim. Slišiš me?
Ja.
Ej, Vanja, jaz te bom samo napovedala, kratko, bom introduction tebe in pol ti začneš, prav?
Ja. Ja, te pa kad dolgo berem, te bom pa videli.
Ja, ti boš brala, pa če te bom sam predstavila, no, tako.
Ja.
Ok.
Kdaj pa se moram zdaj spriti nazaj?
Nazaj, ti boš tam okrog 12, če si bo super.
Pred malo ali ob 12 kar?
Čakaj, ne slišim te zdaj, kaj si rekla?
Zelo je potihem, ne vem, zakaj je zelo potihem.
Aha, veš kaj, te ne slišim dobro, ker je tlele sound je bolj potiho. Ne tvoj, tle v dvorani, Vanja. Povej še enkrat.
Bom naglasno govorila ob 12.
Ne, čakaj, pokličemo po telefonu, Vanja, ker te nič ne slišimo, čakaj.
Kje imam poklica?
Tam jaz poklicala, ker imam...
Evo. A je na speaker, ne?
Ne.
Ok. Ej, Vanja, jaz te bom samo, ker te bo preklopil Domen, te jaz napovem, pač povem na kratko tvoj info CV in rečem, please, Vanja, now your turn in ti začneš svoje, prav?
Ja, zdaj pa me zanima, kdaj ne pridem na gor, da imam dovolj cajt, mislim, da če kaj ni...
Ob 10 do 12, da boš malo prej.
Bo mi napisal.
Ti bo Domen napisal, prav?
Ok.
Ti Domen pošle sporočilo.
Lahko jaz zapustim tudi vse tako prižgano ali se moram izklopiti?
Ne, Domen, a lahko pusti kar vse takole prižgano? Lahko, super, Domen, Vanja, kar pusti. Super, ti se samo unmuti. Muti se, ne unmuti, muti. Daj se na tiho, to. Ne, še vedno si. Si? Ok, super. Ja, ok, ajdi, čau, se vidimo, čau. hopefully you had your coffee and a little bit of refreshing yourself. And we move forward. I would like to invite Petra Jerić, my colleague from Maribor, to join me here. She will be presenting her paper or her presentation, Rethinking Fashion, Discovering the Potential of Biomaterials. She is a textile and fashion designer, but also, and she's also teaching at University Maribor. She won several international awards for her work that she does within her fashion brand called Vivre. I hopefully pronounced correctly, where she's focusing, as in her research work on developing biomaterials, she will talking about, and she's also a PhD candidate. So Petra, please, welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation. So I will present to you today my biomaterial project. I started to work with biomaterials for my master thesis at the Faculty of Natural Sciences and Engineering here at Ljubljana. So I started because I tried to find a material that would be 100% natural and plant-based and would look similar to leather. And I couldn't really find a good material because a lot of these materials still consist of little % of some synthetic compound that is making the material stronger. However, I didn't want to use this, so I decided to take the matter into my own hands and to create my own material. And I really fell in love with the process of developing biomaterial and to all the opportunities that it offers me as a designer. And I also created my brand Vivre. Vivre in French, of course, with different pronunciations, means to live, because with this brand I want life for humans, for animals, and for the planet. So Vivre values, or maybe more like the goals that I set for myself when I was developing the material, was to be, of course, ethical, plant-based, to use only natural compounds, also that the material will be biodegradable. I'm also trying to use all the small pieces, for example, from laser cutting, and use them again, or if they are too small, I recycle the material. So I will tell you a little bit about how I created this material. So first I started with some recipes from the internet that are really basic ones, and they often use only 3 components, some natural polymer, water and glycerol, and I decided to use polysaccharides because they are very abundant and they're usually plant-based. So I will also give you some samples of my materials. Here are some samples that are that were developed really on the beginning, so they are not so good yet, but also ones from now, so you will see all the range. So yes, polysaccharides are the main structure, the main mesh of this material. Then water is used as a solvent, and glycerol is giving the material flexibility. So first I tried to figure out which polysaccharides would be the best for my material, and I tried arrowroot, tapioca, corn, potato starch, and agar. And at the end I chose agar because it gave me the best properties that I needed for clothes. All the rest of the polysaccharides gave slightly harsher material to touch, so I decided to continue with agar. And fast I realized that those materials are not strong enough for clothing use, where we of course have to look that the material is strong enough and durable enough, but at the same time comfortable enough to wear. And I started to add some additional components, for example, fibers, also some natural waxes that all improved and reinforced the material. I also tested different deposition techniques, from extrusion to pouring the material inside some different molds. I tried to spread them with different tools, different rollers, but at the end the best technique for me was to use screen printing squeegee, as you can see on the pictures. And after the deposition, the material has to be dried, either in an oven or, because I have big pieces for clothes, I have to air dry them, and it takes 1 to 2 weeks to be completely dry. I experimented with different pigments and colors. I tried natural pigments, some food edible colors, and also soil and mineral pigments, which gave a stronger color. And then I continued with this aesthetic point of the material. I tried to find how I can create some patterns, textures. I started to use some dry plants to incorporate inside the material. I also started to create some molds that were textured and to put the material inside to get different textures. And also this technique was, especially for my first collection, the most important at the end. It's actually some kind of screen printing, but it's adjusted to the biomaterial. Also the color on the top is biomaterial, just different color, and I used old cotton curtains for this. Then I had another challenge, how to assemble the pieces together. Especially first recipes were really hard to stitch. So I also tried other kind of assembly methods. I tried to melt the material, also to deposit it direct on the mannequin. And lately I'm also trying with this puzzle-like assembly. However, the material now is strong enough and is also okay to be stitched. But I still like to explore other methods as well. And then because I also collaborate with National Institute of Chemistry, we actually tested these, all the formulations, their mechanical properties to see if the material is strong enough. We also worked a lot on the hydrophobicity of the material because, as I said, they are made from polysaccharides, which are, of course, very hydrophilic, which can be a problem for clothing, especially for leather kind of material, which can be, of course, mostly used for outerwear, bags, and so on. So we also measured water contact angles to see if the material became more hydrophobic. We started to, also for my doctoral thesis, I'm actually creating natural and non-toxic coatings for textiles or also for biomaterials. And we also had to make sure that the material is biodegradable, and it can biodegrade in 40 days once it's inside the soil, of course. And here this picture is after 22 days in the soil. Yeah, so another opportunity that the material gives me is to include some sensory design. I started to include smell, and I also took care that the material is good to touch. So for smell, I started to add, firstly, I added some essential oils, but later more sustainable plant hydrolates. And I think this sensory design is really important because clothes can be much more than just some physical shields and can also be maybe psychological shields in today's world. And these are my products that are also already available on the Vivre website, bags and jewelries. And this is my first fashion collection from the biomaterial. And then second one, with each collection, I changed the recipe a little. I'm still exploring what's the best. And this is my latest collection made from assembling the pieces. So thank you.
To fall down. So Petra, thank you. I think you are building in Slovenian environment a crucial one. As I was speaking and mentioned before, textile production is very poor in Slovenia, and also you are bringing innovation into the textile production and textile and fashion business, which I think it's even more important because we are lacking those elements in Slovenian fashion. But overall, it's still experimenting what you are actually doing, and plant-based biomaterials. What can be their way into the fashion system as such? How they can really change fashion system, or do you think that this is still on the margins of, and will be after some years will pass, or will be some kind of a mainstream within the fashion?
Yes, I think for now it's very important because we can see a lot of synthetic leather solutions and animal, of course, that are both also environmentally not friendly. However, we can see those commercially available biomaterials that are already used. Also, I think H&M made some kind of ones. I think they also used, I think, apple leather or something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm afraid this is more like a way to like try to be sustainable, but not really. So I really hope and I believe that with time it will develop much more and will be used also maybe for fast fashion one day.
Is it your research within the PhD studies is connected with the broader production facilities, or is still shall we say, within the frame of micro-scale production?
Yeah, it's micro-scale.
So it's just for your use?
Yes.
How do you feel, you mentioned this greenwashing connected with the H&M, of course, also with the biomaterials and this innovation, it goes beyond just sustainability, and it's also used as marketing tool. Mm-hmm. How do you feel this material that you are developing and because this is based on waste, or I'm mistaken?
No, for now it's based on agar, which is not waste, but yes, actually I also am trying to find out possibilities to actually extract the polysaccharides from food waste.
So, okay, so this is a good example how you can reduce waste, probably.
Yes.
Are there any hopeful research on this matter? So, is it going to happen on the waste, polysaccharide from the waste?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So, should we be more aware of how, with the food waste that we are, or not, because you will be using in the textiles? You know, with the food waste, we are actually very irresponsible as consumers. So you will be lacking then material if we are so reducing the waste. Just one more final questions. In what scale of production you are now? How many clothing or accessories are you able to produce each year with this material?
Yes. I'm not producing so many, maybe like mini fashion collection, like 3 to 5 outfits and some smaller bags and stuff. But it's not so much because of the production, but I don't have enough time. So.
I can imagine with all your responsibilities and work. Thank you, Petra, for finding time to be part of the symposium.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, but I have to switch off one mic. Now I will be joined by Ivana Bjorčina from Croatia. So please join me. We are now turning into more a practicing base of the symposium, so to speak. So her presentation is called Sustainability and Creativity, Shaping a New Vision of Work and Creation, as you can see. And shortly to present Ivana Bjorčina. She's coming from Koprivnica, if you know, from a smaller town, even outside of the outskirts of Koprivnica you live. So she's the author of 3 books, if I know correctly. She's textile engineer and researcher, and I can also add an activist in fashion and textile production, and also educator. Non-formal educator, but that is even more important these days. She is also a founder of an institute for sustainable fashion, so you can follow the institute also on Instagram and all of her activities. Ivana, please.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah, so behind this very grandiose title of my lecture is just, I will try to root you in practice to show you how it looks in Croatia and on the real margins. As was said, I don't live in Zagreb, it's up north near the Hungarian border. It's a small village, but my business is placed in a small town near the village. So yes, but first I would just like to skip like really fast through this, maybe some topics, just what sustainability is in the context that I work. The theory, you all know, like what's said about sustainability, but for me the most important thing is balance. To try to like strive towards balance. I know that it's really hard to be balanced and in work, in life, but that's my main focus. And also I think that in sustainability, when we talk about it, it's always like man is here, he is like the antagonist, nature is here, like the victim, but in reality we are nature. We are not part of the nature, we are nature, so that's the main focus for me, is just to bring it all together and to rethink everything. So in sustainable fashion, but we could talk about any kind of production here, it's of course design and production with conscious consideration and approach to nature. I won't say to nature and man, because as I said, we are nature. And my main that I'm fighting for is that there is no established definition. Like when you go onto the path of sustainability and in production, you will see that like every step of the way is just you have to rethink, you have to redo everything, everything is anew, and I think that's very exciting. So I think you all know this is like a basic mainstream production from raw materials to end of use that you are being taught, I think, in schools and in life and in everything. But in real life, of course, you know that this straight line is so complex that every part of the production is in different continent, on different part of the world, and every part of the production, it has like energy consumption, water use, chemical use, and it's very, very complex. And this is for mainstream production, but also it's for small-scale production, and we cannot escape it, but we can, I don't know, try to reshape it. So also that this is, I think, the main focus of learning of like circularity, sustainability, is that you have like this straight line that we are in, or you have this design for longevity where you try to reshape, like with some force, reshape this straight line, and then this like goal is this circularity that we are being thought is our main goal. But I think that what we miss is that this is not only the storyline of our lives that we are taught for design, production, and economy, but it's also for intention, creation, thinking, learning, comprehension, work, story, life, man, nature. As I said, everything we do in our life is through this very one-dimensional storylines. So now I will show you how it's done in my Institut održive mode, or Institute for Sustainable Fashion. So it's a small local business, but as you can see in the title, I try to in the title like show that it's a hybrid, because I do produce clothes, but I'm also really, really focused on education and on really reshaping like every step of the way. So my main, let's say, I don't know, 3 pillars, it's always like 3 pillars of my work. It's creating a new story, which means that you have to really cut all ties with the old, and that sustainability is creativity. Also, I think that it's every time we talk about sustainability, from the moment I came to Ljubljana, I'm just bombarded with like posters, reduce this, don't breathe because it's toxic, I don't know. It's all laws and it's all restrictions, and we should be like really guilty because everything is like we are guilty for antagonist for this victim nature. But for me, like really true sustainability in its core is creativity. And as I said, because you really have to rethink and reshape and redo every part of the way. So the concept that I work with is, of course, I work with best organic materials that I can find in Europe, and it's all from Germany. That is the only place that I've found that I can really like semi-trace, like that I know that it's really organic and that it's 100% natural. But I also work with antique materials that would be from our very rich like lineage and heritage, like, you know, antique linen, antique hemp, antique cotton. Vintage, of course, it's always like a treasure when I find some vintage materials from Yugoslavian production, and that is like natural fibers. Upcycling, of course, local. That's like my main goal is like I'm really grounded locally, and to try to produce locally, try to grow locally, try to grow community locally, and for people to come to me so I don't have to go anywhere. Intention, I will talk about intention in a little bit, but also to be completely transparent about everything that I do, to not just push and on a workshop item, but to be really like transparent about every step of the way, and to try to communicate everything that I do in the most, like to speak from my heart and to speak from experience, what's going on everyday basis. And through that, I think that in that way, that is the most strongest education if you really are transparent and really clear in every step of the way. That is, I think, the only way that you can really educate and that sticks. So this is how it looks in the grounds or on the grounds. This is flax production. This is the third year of flax production for linen. It's really important to keep the heritage and keep the knowledge in our hands, because in Croatia, and I think that in Serbia and also here in Slovenia, but in all of Europe and all the world, like this knowledge of production of raw materials on smaller scales is just not disappearing rapidly, but has disappeared like in the last 30 years. This is cotton flower, and this is cotton. So I am up north and I cannot get like a really high quality cotton, but you can get it on the islands where cotton needs like a warmer climate. And you can see these are the seeds from the cotton buds, and in the fibers you can always find seeds for the next cycle of production. This is indigo. Indigo, you can grow indigo in Slovenia. I can grow it up north in Croatia. I got the seeds from a colleague that grows it in Novigrad in Istria. This is a Japanese indigo, and I also grow. It's called like European indigo, which was pre-ancestor to in these parts of Japanese indigo. And you can get beautiful colors like this. This is with fresh indigo dyed hemp, linen, cotton. This is nettle. So my business is placed in the town called Koprivnica, which got its name from Kopriva or nettle. So it was really important, and everything is nettle there. So it was really important to also show that the potential of nettles for textiles. And I also brought like the world's famous expert, Alan Brown of nettle textiles, and he held a workshop in Koprivnica, and we had like people from all over the region came to Koprivnica and learned some basics about how you can produce like fibers for nettle textiles. This is also one project that is going on this year. So in an old army like complex in Koprivnica, I set up a community textile and natural dyes garden that you can use. And you can see here there was a workshop. We worked with natural dyes from the garden. I also, like a day before yesterday, had some youngsters from elementary schools in Slovenia that came, and we also worked with natural dyes and with textiles. And this whole project was part of the artist residency, and it will end tomorrow with exhibition. So, as you can see from these just examples, few examples that I've shown you, and if we go to the beginning, like this whole storyline that we are being taught, that is just one-dimensional. Like if you look at it, you just have to snap out of the old and create a new timeline, and just really go deep into the intention of it all. But also that this kind of thinking is just really, really one-dimensional, that we are being taught, and that it should like look something like this, like some sacred geometry, but also this is very old, and this is maybe like 2-3-dimensional, and that it should look like this, like Pablo Amarino's paintings, that like one good intention from like one local man that wants to serve his local community can really go far, can really reshape his local community, but also regional, and I really believe the world, because it is just one good intention after another that can really reshape everything. So for you youngsters, this was the presentation for you, and just know that it's really important to be open and to know that the answer will come. It always comes, even if it feels unclear and uncomfortable. This is something that you learn from experience, and that it's really important to dive with pleasure into mystery and not with fear, and to be open. And in that way you can really recreate everything. And I want to end with two quotes from two authors. One was really like at the end of his life when he wrote this, and one is a younger author. And they say, to those who will make the 21st century, and that is you youngsters here, we say with our affection, to create is to resist, and to resist is to create. And also the second one is dedication to the humble whose invisible choices are healing the world. Thank you, and hope to see you on the path.
You're talking about the community. You're talking about, to come now to the beginning, from bottom up, all the changes must come. The fashion lies on the trickle-down system. But now we are speaking about bottom up, so you can do changes in a local community. You can be positive in a local community. Then again, you use Instagram as a way, as a platform to educate, to inform. So how to integrate, because fashion has been very sustainable, so to say. It hasn't been that fast forward and fast fashion, and so consumer oriented in this consumerism on steroids. How do you find, this combination in today's world, combining Instagram algorithm based platform to inform, to educate, with really locally based, not just production, but the whole business you're running? How is this combination? It is already open, so you can speak freely in the mic, yeah.
You just have to be clear that Instagram or anything that you use is just a tool. It's not reality. It's just a tool that you use, and I use it to try to spread some good and to try to include people and to try to show in practice how it works. I'm only focused on serving. I don't do anything about myself, me. It's just everything is done in service. Everything is done in beauty, to celebrate the beauty of life, the beauty of creativity, the sacred life, the nature, and that's my only goal. And you have to really, I think that it's, I'm older and I started using Instagram just 5 years ago when I opened my business. And yes, it's really, I think especially it will be for younger people that really don't know, I don't think, to disconnect the real world that is in physicality, with your friends, and then something that is online and that is completely algorithm based. But I think that you have to build yourself up, build your community of friends, of real life support, and know that this is just a tool. This is a tool, and it can be a really good tool, but it's not built to serve us. So you have to be really
keep distance.
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but you can do it. And I think that it's becoming more and more. I see it so clearly, in the Matrix when I come there, and I just see the algorithm, and I see the fear in people that are just screaming me, because they are fighting. Even. One thing is that if you have a really quality mastery in anything, you don't have to be afraid of anything.
you spoke about not being afraid, being proactive. This is a very word now common. I have to share with you how I met, how I heard about Ivana many years ago when I was in Zagreb in bookshop. I always go to local bookshops, and there was one book in the shelves of the fashion. It was her book, and of course I bought it because in our region there is not many books on fashion by local authors. And I read it and I said, wow, must be a very interesting person to meet. And I even quoted her in some of my papers and works. So now there was an opportunity also to invite her at the fashion, this symposium. One more thing, we spoke earlier about how when you have workshops with young people, you notice that they don't even know how the products are produced, where they come from.
No, it's the older people, they don't
older, they don't know, okay.
The older, yeah, it's a complete shock to me, and I have to say that working with younger children, especially in the region that I am, because they have some connection to the land, their grandmothers have some land or some gardens, and they just are really quick to connect everything. If I show them the nettles, they, oh yeah, my grandfather has it, and they're really quick to connect with the people in towns, in big towns, and the older and like middle-aged and older, they're just like, the disconnect is so obvious, like in the last few years, and it's becoming a real challenge because, of course, this consumerism has reshaped and algorithms have reshaped everybody's brains. So it's, I mean, it's a struggle that we have to do within ourselves, within our heart, within our soul, and then from there it will just go on and reshape, like in a better image, everything.
One last question about, you know, can we really reshape fashion system?
I'm so not interested in fashion systems. I really don't consider myself a fashion designer. I don't consider myself to be in a part of the fashion world, fashion system. Like, and you shouldn't be either. Like, you should strive to live a good life, to create from your heart and from your soul, to do some good in the world. I call it mature creativity, something that you come later on in life. Of course, when you're young, you try to prove yourself. It's just you're focused on yourself. But then, especially from like some tragedies in life, reshapes your brain. And then you look that life is beautiful, world is beautiful, people are good, and that you want to do some good in the world, and that you want to, through your work, like serve others. But also it has to be like from you and not from like I want to be on the cover of something, but really to serve your community, and from then on it will just like everything will follow, and like you don't have to even put so much effort in it because everything will just, the path will open.
Ivana, thank you for your thoughts, and we will be following this path now also with another colleague of mine that will be joining us. Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you.
Yes, we are on the same path, following this story. And please, Tina Prince, if you can join me. She is a creative director and founder of the brand called Things I Miss. 10 plus years already on the market. I have to say this word. I know that probably even I don't like the word as well, but nevertheless we still live in this kind of a world. She's producing locally. She's very in the same path as Ivana, and also been in the European market, included in the Berlin Fashion Week, the Center of Creativity in Ljubljana, Zagreb Design Week, Ljubljana Fashion Week, Big C, Nordiska Company and Department Store in Stockholm, and the green. She won also the Green Product Award and was part at the University of Leeds. But I have to emphasize also she actively participates in global platforms such as Fashion Revolution, Fashion Changers, and the Ethical Fashion platform. She will be presenting very simple title, Things I Miss concept. Please, Tina.
Hello, hi. Nice to see you from that perspective, not from the first row. Thank you for inviting me, Tanya. I'm very happy to be part of this discussion because it's very interesting. I will not talk a lot. I will invite you into the things I miss materia, into the world of beautiness, aesthetic, passion, into the world of being aware of that life is limited for everyone from here and outside this room, into the world of intuitive path, into the world of trying hard to raise awareness to the installation or being a part of the performance where we make scenography or costumography. So I'm inviting you to this path through the visuals. And let's see the movie first from our last year when we make a big project in the Ljubljana Castle. So this was a project about the womb, about the women, part of the women which we are privileged to have a birth, to have children and so on. This was a big project, very intense. For me, it was traveling 6 months through the education about how we are breathing. So I was raising awareness inside of me about what breathe is. How we breathe, how can we breathe deeplier, not deeplier, what this part of our body is constructed from. I was traveling through the path of being aware of what humans are, what women are, or what people are, what the coexistence within us means to us. And the result of the half year of traveling was the big project on Ljubljana Castle, where we represented the womb. We tried to, with the light, with the textiles, with the fluidity of forms, with movement, with sound, with audiovisual form, and with the experience. So I used 2 kilometers of gauze, of fabric, which Tosama company gave me for the production. I invited Carolina, here you can see Carolina from Andalusia, who is my customer also, and also my very dear friend now after so many years, that she bring into the castle a movement to create a space for people who came to opening and to offer them to stop and rethink. So that's what that was our goal. So here is the opening moment. There are about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 people sitting around the center. At the top, so we had the audiovisual form. This was just part of the movie. Above us, we had 2 kilometers of gauze. Around us, we had the heritage of the castle. I created the layers from the gauze, and it took me 2 days to make this from my hands. So trying to bring the womb into the feeling of visitors. So this is just one of the projects. Things I Miss is conscious concept. I try to invite every time different artists, and I talk about these artists because I cannot do this alone. It's about movement, it's about a community of beautiful people, beautiful artists, women, men, who are trying to bring this stop and rethink moments into within people. So the essence of the Things I Miss concept is research of human body or body within the space, architectural or natural space, within all the sensory moments we can experience. So this is movement, breathe, like I said before, fluid forms, textures, everything that is about sensory. And Things I Miss Institute is trying to develop the sensory moments in space and also to make them alive every time, every year, when it's possible to do that. So this was one of the cases of sensory moments in space, and I invited you into the part of the movie just because to offer you some kind of sensory moment in space, because I think that with this kind of thinking, we can approach to the essence of the problem of the fast fashion, and this is person. So if we try, I'm trying to make a little change on every person which is part of our project, and maybe with this kind of changes we can make butterfly effect, and maybe one day we will switch the fast fashion into the education, into the awareness of what we are doing with fast fashion. Things I Miss essence is going through different channels. So one channel is installation like this. The other channel is being part of the performances on the stage, so or creating the costumography or creating the scenography, but always I'm doing with the organic materials. I'm always trying to educate also my partners in crime to do with materials that we have. So don't buy new, try to do something from the old things and try to make something what you just have right now, and then you do something. I think this is the power of creativity and the power of art. So we did many performances we already did, but I put it out, some of them. Then we are part of the fashion weeks, not because we love the backstage or the loudness of these events, but because we want to also make stop and rethink moments also through this channel, so through the catwalking, but we don't do catwalking. Our models are always barefooted, they always are part of some concept, so it's not collection, but it's always addition and an art piece. And we also do exhibitions of photographies. Then we are sometimes part of the architectural projects, so we do interior. We try to educate also about the interior and about the plastic we have around in our interiors. And now I will just go through the visuals and I will show you some projects, and then I will go with Tanja. This is one of the projects on the big venue in Cankarjev dom in Galusova dvorana. It's about so it was a pianist, Volmaier Ligeti. We make rebirth of Ligeti passion. So this is the team, which is very important. We structured a big scenographic object with gas. It was 1 kilometer of gas. This is part of the beginning where we try to make something from it. Make some making of feelings. This was on the performance. So it's coexistence within different kind of media. Like Tanja said before, it's things is intermediate concept. Putting together different kind of narrations and making something big from it, I mean the statement. This is the team. This is part of the project which I do with Mosquito Hair Lab. It's hairstyle concept. Matej is the owner, Matej Komara, and he always invited me to make costumes. And for example, this piece, we didn't sew anything. We just do some stitches at the top, but the other part, the down part, is made from 20 meters of gauze, and I didn't cut anything. I was just creating the organic sculptured story. The same, this crinolina I use all the time, so it's about the reusing the piece of object. This is the performance on Biennale for flamenco. So it's like costumography and scenographic object. And Anna and me, we collaborate in a very beautiful way. She's open to educate about how she can reuse her costumes again and again and again and use them as a narration through the performance. And you can see that it's the same material all the time, but in different kind of concept and narrations and bodies and sculptures. For me, it's beautiful to see. This is part of the exhibition, photographic exhibition. The title was Rebirth, and it's a story about metaphoric of life. So we born, we live, we create, and we die. But we reborn, I think, and we live again, and we create, and we die. And again, we born, or somebody else born and creates and dies. So I try to make awareness of this through the art. And this is the last fashion week. The title was Instinct Blooming. It's about feeling myself in this period of life, being around 50. It means I feel very blooming. So till now I was opening, and now I'm very open. I'm very open and very relaxed. So yeah. I can tell you a story about my friend, 8 years old architect. When he met me, he said, you know, this year you will be 50. Don't worry, from now on it will be easier, because until 50 you have rational imagination. And after 50 you started to be more fluid, and you start to be more soft, and you go through life like you are above the floor, you know, you go like, everything is going very well, so don't worry. Okay, we are almost at the end. So this is things I miss. It's everything about our body, about our life, about our cycles, about coexistence within people, within nature, within materials. And yeah, it's mindful story of design and art. It's holistic approach, conscious concept. We are always trying to go on the edge as much as possible. And for me, being a part as a performer, it was really a big experience. Yeah. Skin is like a fabric. And I developed the second skin concept. When I create clothings, I try to raise awareness to my clients that please make less buying, and what you buy quality things, and then you layer. You can use summer things also in the winter with many layers. And we make tea times with the ladies, and we educate these things. So thank you for listening. I will try to the end.
Tita, they will listen you a little more, so
Yeah.
yeah. Please join me. In this, your coexistence with the others, this is the word you use a lot, but also collaboration. And we heard today also rethinking, rebirth, so many things. We are reinventing world as we know, because as now I see, it's like we turned the wrong exit on a highway. So we are now in the, like, somewhere we don't know actually where we are. We're trying to get back to our path, as we heard before. I think we all gained the atmosphere of your work, the attitude. But overall, as some question that would be addressed to all of us, what do you think is essential we have to follow within the creativity? Because now your work is not just fashion, it's beyond that, it's about the creativity. And I think all of us today, we're talking about creativity that's not focused in one area or field. What would be the main message, you know, how to live as a consumer in today's world?
I think when I was thinking about the center and the title of this event, definitely more the centers are very loud, and I think that our lives becomes very loud. Instagram, Facebook, page, everything needs to be so loud, you know. So I think first we need to find a peace within ourselves. I think that mainly people are not calm with themselves. So inner peace is the problem, I think. I think that we need to bring inner peace to people. And this is not with consuming more and talking more and making more Instagram things and all the algorithms and everything. This is not a good way. This is the wrong way, I think.
I mean, you are using as well, as I asked Ivan, of course, we are all using it as platforms, as a tool to educate, to inform people, to give some messages out in the world, but it's not about ourselves, actually. It's not about how we live. In a way it is, but it's about the message, the value. One more question before we end the symposium and go to the end message, about this loudness. In the work you do, one can sense this calmness, this holistic approach, if you want to put it that way. But nevertheless, it has to be loud to be visible, to be traceable in this loud world, in a world when it's a lot of images that we are getting, that are visible but not readable in many times. How you balance these both sides of your work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't say before, but I was thinking that I need to mention, I don't live from things amiss income. So this is very important information, because if I want to live, I need to work also other things, but they are not some other things, but they are connected with things amiss. I'm a producer, I do some other things also, but first of all, I think that we need, not with the goal that we are visible, but the goal that we make something good for the world, the same as you said. And you don't need to think about algorithm or anything. You need to make something good for the world. You need to make something good for the people. You need to educate, to raise awarenesses, and if you do that, you will be visible, because we need that. Somebody will recognize the message. And I'm not obsessed with to be visible. I'm just obsessed to be transparent and always very honest what I do. That's very important, and this is the message to the youngest also. Be authentic and find your inner voice. What is your voice? Everybody has its own voice, and it's very important also to understand that because I'm producer, I can manage to understand also the production part of the brand, of the concept, and I'm very conscious also within that. It's about being conscious when I create, and it's also being conscious how I put this into the world. So collaborate with beautiful people who help to put things into the world, like Anya is here today who is helping me, and Nino is making photography here. And the other part is also being conscious within business. Don't fight. Make business with people who don't fight. Make business with people who are conscious.
So culture context, economic context can go hand in hand and create something more positive to others as well, not just to yourself. But with this voice, we are now really ending, and thank you, Tina. And we are calling now in Berlin to join us, Vanja Meško, if we have her online, Rusenberger. She's a fashion designer, activist. She's a fashion designer within fashion brand Meško, but also activist. She was running in Zurich Ostblock. It was a concept store, and showing maybe also some of the, not maybe, but I know for sure some of the Slovene fashion brands. But also she is very strong in as feeling or thinking that fashion designers and fashion people have to be activists, have to be educators, have to have message. And nice to see you, Vanja, online. Her presentation is called shortly, but it's going to finish, so our symposium without any questions. So her presentation is called End Message.
Hello. I'm glad to be part of this symposium, even only online from Berlin. I will read the text. I want to say that clearly at the beginning, not because I'm distanced from the topic, but because words matter. Reading allows me to use the right words and not to forget anything important. I have been working for many years as a fashion designer, and I am an activist. I treat fashion as political because it functions as a system of identity, power, social norms, and control, and not just an aesthetic and creative expression. When we say fashion is political, we are not talking about the government's laws or election. Politics in broader sense include power, identity, social norms, and culture values. Basically, how a society organizes itself and who decided what is normal and what is acceptable. Fashion plays a major role in this. Why fashion is political? First, expression of identity and resistance. Clothing can express who you are, which social group you belong to, or what you believe in. Hijabs can be personal expression of faith or cultural identity, but they are often politicized by laws or social norms. Power and ranking, this is the second why fashion is political. Reinforces social structures. Who has access to certain styles or luxury brands often reflect wealth, class, and status. Third, challenging norms and sparkling debates. Fashion can raise questions about the gender norms, body structures, or beauty rules. Fashion that breaks gender rules challenge the idea that clothing must be for men or for women. Movements like Black Lives Matter have used clothing to communicate position of solidarity. Fourth, global and culture politics. What is accepted by the mainstream on one place may be not accepted somewhere else. Fashion often reflects colonial history, culture misuse, and globalization. For example, wearing traditional Native American patterns without permission has been criticized as a political issue. Fashion is political through its culture, visual, and economic power. And with that comes responsibility to reflect the time we live in, to face reality, and to act with awareness and respect. Whatever we agree or not, fashion is political, even when it tries to be objective, innocent, or silent. Silence in fashion is not innocent. It's a political position. What we often call normal, variable, or universal is never natural because it's shaped by power, who produce clothes, where they are produced, and which bodies, lifestyles, and identities are considered worth while others remain or margins. Opposite to this, it's anti-fashion. Anti-fashion has existed a long time ago, and it's often misunderstood because it does not reject clothing itself, but the logic dictated by mainstream fashion. Anti-fashion is not absence of fashion. It is saying no to imposed power system that decided what is modern, appropriate, or important. It is not outside fashion. It is response to its power structure that shape bodies, taste, values, and desire. Fashion is often presented as creativity or innovation, yet it is also an elite system connecting to capitalism, class, and control, where certain bodies, lifestyles, and identities matter more. Fashion is not free expression, but an economic and ideological system. Anti-fashion often emerge on the margins from subculture, squat, underground, rooted in a basic need, resistant and saying no. Clothing in this context serves less as a buyable object and more as a language. Styling becomes a form of resistance against dominant beauty standards, norm or visibility, and the constant pressure to buy and consume. Anti-fashion resists the idea of universal, aesthetic, and empathize locality, politics, and life spaces. It is rejection, slow down, reuse, stay local, ignore seasonal rules. That's why it's rarely comfortable for mainstream fashion and usually exists on the margins until it becomes interesting for the mainstream. Everything that comes from the margins becomes important only when it becomes understandable to mainstream fashion. When it is visually interesting, raw, authentic, but safe enough not to challenge the fashion system. Marginal aesthetic get used as inspiration, while the context in which they emerge is lost. Politics get softened, resistance becomes aesthetic. The people who create this practice get pushed back to the margins. Mainstream fashion almost never allows marginal practice to exist independently on their own. This is one of the main contradictions. The margins are essential for mainstream fashion development and the renewal. Yet they are rarely allowed to survive without being absorbed. If we want to speak about fashion beyond the center, we must understand this mechanism and create space where marginal practice can exist without being consumed, aestheticized, or stripped out of politics. If anti-fashion refuses authority, what does this offer instead? It offers autonomy, the possibility of self-styling, a personal language, and the rejection of imposed norms. Fashion should not tell people how to dress. It should create a space where individuals can express themselves, find their own language, a rhythm, and visibility. Fashion can inspire people to show who they are and what they want to say to the world without forcing their identity to follow trends or rules set by the mainstream. Fashion should not create rules. It can offer tools, ideas, inspiration, but must leave space for people to style themselves, resist trends, express identity without permission. Style is personal expression. Rules are control. My work. I collect clothes from the street in Kreuzberg 36 in Berlin, rework them and give them new life. Almost every day I go out and I never return empty-handed. I find many different things: fake designer clothes, punk t-shirts, clothes that were never used. Each piece asks me, why was it left on the street? Sometimes because of gentrification, sometimes because of a mistake or personal change, sometimes it is just a wrong fast fashion buy. But a lot of times are also clothes from homeless people who receive them in shelters but cannot carry them around, which is unfortunately very logical once you understand the reality of their lives. Each piece carries a story, the reality of our city, its people. The clothes have been worn, lived, marked by youth, migration, labor, class, and social differences. They were not created to express identity, and yet they do. I connect this practice to anti-fashion because it rejects new things, authorship, the logic of seasonal fashion, and the influence of mainstream fashion values. Often nameless, worn, repaired, or damaged, but full of everyday life and human stories. I don't see them as a waste, but as something that exists. And it's not nostalgic. It is working with what already exists. When I give these clothes new life, I'm not recycling or upcycling. I'm reflecting life, histories, and social realities that are often invisible. Critic to upcycling. Upcycling is everywhere today, and it's seen as one of the biggest narratives of fashion activism. But upcycling is no longer radical. It has become a normal part of the fashion industry, helping to polish its image without changing its logic. Waste is transformed, but production continues. If fashion wants to act responsibly, the message cannot remain upcycle, recycle. It must be deeper. Buy less, wear longer, repair, and separate your value from buying and from needing new things. Fashion revolution is loud, but I don't think we are ready. Neither people or the fashion world, fashion industry, are ready for this. Losing the benefits and stepping away from the comfort of Western world. If fashion truly wanted change, we would have to boycott the fashion system. And even if it sounds radical, it might be the only way to fashion to actually change. There are also many swap markets, flea markets, and giveaway markets, which is good, but these practices are also part of the same logic. They give us a feeling of doing something good, but they do not change much because they still encourage the idea that we need something new. Wanting more doesn't stop, it's just change form. The present moment and silence in the fashion. When I talk about silence in fashion, I mean the world we live in right now. Today, we are witnessing extreme violence and genocide in Gaza, Sudan, Congo, and elsewhere, happen in a real time in front of our eyes. The fashion industry is global, connected, and extremely fast in reaction. So it cannot claim that it doesn't know what is happening. This is not knowing, it is choosing. Fashion is loud, visual, and confident about some conflict. It speaks the language of solidarity, care, and activism. But just in some conflict, about other, it stays silent. This silence is not accidentally, it's selective. It follows the same system that has long decided which lives matter, which are visible, and which are allowed to remain unnamed. This system is connected to racism, white dominance, colonial history, and global power of structure. Fashion is not neutral observer. It's a part of the same global economy, the same flows of capital, the same history of oppression. It's silent, it's not passive. It is an active decision that confirms existing unfair systems. When fashion stays silent about certain violence, certain people, certain regions, it's not taking a not political stance. It's a taking a side. Silence means agreement with a structure that allows some to suffer without attention. If we talk about fashion that exists beyond the mainstream, then we must name this silence. Fashion has the power to shape what is seen and what stays invisible. And with that comes responsibility not to reproduce the same logic of exclusion that shapes today's world. Now it's my conclusion. Today, we are in a space that was once a squad, a space of resistance, community, and solidarity. a space created out of needs, exclusion, and survival. Today, it is a culture venue that is supposedly to be open for everyone, but often not for those who were here before or the people who actually need this space. This is not just a local story, it's a part of a wider process. Fashion and culture spaces often follow the same logic as society: exclusion and domination. What comes from margins, it's cleaned up, repacked, and made acceptable for the mainstream, while the people who create it are pushed out. Just like this space, as it exists today, as a culture venue, fashion often talks about openness and inclusion, but only under conditions set by mainstream. Fashion, which should be creativity and freedom, is deeply connected to privilege, capital, racial dominance, and colonial structures. This structure decided which story matter, which identities are visible, and which people are accepted and which are not. So let me repeat. We are gathered in a space that once resists authority, a squad, a place of community and solidarity, and the people who lived and create here were pushed out by force. Today, this space hosts a symposium on a fashion, identity, and marginal communities. This is not neutral backdrop. It's a reminder that marginal spaces are often taken, their history erased, their people displaced. If we talk about fashion beyond mainstream, we must also talk about the spaces we occupy. How these spaces, systems, and institutions are built and at whose expense. And we must talk about who is included and who is excluded, often violently and without the possibility to return. If fashion is to truly exist beyond mainstream, it cannot simply take inspiration for margins or their appropriate identity. It must create spaces for their existence in a not commercial, human, respectful way that honors histories, communities, and practice, not just aesthetic. We must also rethink how fashion and culture spaces like this are built through exclusion, displacement, and silence. We must ask, who is excluded, who is displaced, who is silent, and why? Fashion is political, not only when it speaks, but also when it stays silent. Rok je naš, free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, freedom to all oppressed people in the world, and also free fashion from the capitalistic system. Thank you.
Tanja, thank you for your words, and saying bye to Berlin and see you soon in Ljubljana. Okay.
Sorry?
Thank you all for your time, and hopefully with these words we make some kind of a circle from Instagram, from algorithms to activism and fighting that must go on within the fashion. In this regard, I thank Center Rok for hosting us. I thank supporters, Faculty of Design, and most of all, I thank my colleague Domen Lo for his support in all these 4 years, helping with not just technical, but in many times support also in producing this event. Thank you all for coming. It has been a long journey from morning, and hopefully has raised some questions also for you to think over in the next hours. Of course, we are also being so kindly welcomed by Center Rock that you can also visit other labs, and especially textile labs, because this is connected with our field. Thank you and goodbye.